Now the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to lay a small bead of silicone on this block for the pan gasket to stick to. And first you need to make sure you have a nice dry surface. You don't want a bunch of oil or assembly lube on this block. You want the silicone to touch metal, so you've got it pretty clean. And what we want to do is we're going to put a nice little bead in the corner of this timing cover here because there's a little air gap there. And we want this motor to be sealed up and have no oil leaks when we're done. So we'll just draw a small bead of silicone all the way across the block, right on the gasket surface, around the oil dipstick tube, into our rear main area. Okay. Same thing on this side. Lay a little bead in the corner of the timing cover there. Now you don't need to put a lot of silicone, just enough to seal between the gasket and the metal is enough. Some people put too much, and that's really not good because you can have silicone debris floating into your oil pan if it squishes through to the other side. So just want to barely put enough. And I like to take the finger and just smooth it out a little bit, kind of in line with the oil pan bolt holes. Same deal over here. And we're going to lay our cork gaskets down on this. Now this should tuck right into the timing cover. Around, just line up all your bolt holes perfectly. Let that push it down a little and give it some pressure right on that silicone, and we want it to stick on that silicone. Okay, so that one's on actually very straight. Now we're going to go for this one. There's been occasions where I had to trim the little edge of the cork gasket, which is fine. Just make sure you use enough silicone to cover up any teeny leaks. Yeah, that one is on very good too. Okay. So now we're going to take the rear oil pan seal, which kind of looks like the rear main seal. We're going to put a little dab of silicone on the little corners here. Press it on. And another little dab on the little corners here. Let's put a little bit right on the corner here. Anywhere there's a corner or a little edge like that, you need to put some sealant. That's where you're going to get a leak, if anywhere. We don't want an oil leak. Now I just want to run one little finger bead across the top of this metal rear main bearing cap here where the seal rides. And this has a little notch. On each bottom has a square notch that'll actually slip right into a little slot in the block here. It'll fit right on. So you push that on there, line up your bolt holes, let it sit there a minute. Generally I like to wait about 15 or 20 minutes and let this stuff harden a little bit before I go any further, and that'll hold everything into place. So we'll wait for 15 minutes and come back and we'll test to see which oil pan gasket fits here in the front. We'll test the oil pan on there, and then we'll cinch it all down. We'll be good to go. I've already gone ahead and set in one of the front oil pan seals. There's two of them. This one's very thick, and the other one's about half the thickness of this. And I'm pretty much guessing this is going to be the right one to use. But the kit comes with both, and you'd be surprised. Some of them fit that one, and some of them fit the other. So we're going to try our oil pan on here. See how it fits, and that looks, actually it looks pretty darn good. It's tight around here, and it's almost touching the bottom, which is good. That means we have room to tighten down with our bolts and cinch everything up tight. So this appears to be the correct seal we already have in there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. And just like we did before, we're going to put a little silicone, but only we're not going to silicone the entire surface area. We're just going to silicone the little corners everywhere we have little joints, and I like to just put a nice little bead all the way across to the bolt hole and maybe a 1/2 inch up on this rubber part. If you can see that right here. Just enough so it's going to squish out but not make a big mess. Then also put a little bead across the whole top of this rubber. Just on one side of it. You don't have to flood the whole thing. Just by the outer lip. If you see some silicone come out while you're tightening it, then you know that you got an airtight seal, and that's what we want. So we'll put a little bit on this corner. Do the same thing back here on this rubber. We're going to put a little bead on the joining edges and on the little corner angle spot here, and just a small bead across this plastic top. Don't really need very much at all there. So we're going to put all these bolts in by hand. I always start and do all the corner bolts first. That way we know that we got it on here straight. Let me go ahead and recap what we've done here. First we laid down the oil pan gasket. Remember, we filled the little corners full of silicone. Laid the oil pan on top. Started all the bolts, beginning with the corner bolts, which are the larger bolts. Then we started by hand all of our smaller bolts that go all the way around. And then next what we wanted to do is, starting at the middle bolts, we're just going to gently tighten all the middle bolts, working our way outward till we get to the corner bolts, and tighten all those just so the gasket's touching. And then I like to usually let it sit for an hour or two and let that silicone set up, dry most of the way before I tighten the rest of the bolts to the complete torque. And I like to let this silicone set up for a couple hours. That way when we completely tighten all the bolts, the gasket won't squish out. It'll be all set up and stay intact like that. So anyways, I've gone ahead and painted it. It's always better to do 1 or 2 or 3 light coats of paint rather than just caking it all on one coat. It looks a lot better if you just do some light coats. So anyway, we already got the paint painted on there, and it's ready to. We've already got the paint on there. I'm going to let it dry a little bit, then we're going to flip it over and install the lifters, push rods, cylinder heads, and intake manifold.